When I come to do my 1 to 24 predictions around late July, I think Chesterfield are a club that are going to tick most of the boxes that I'll be looking for in terms of prospective promotion candidates because they've got momentum behind them. They're a club that finished in the top 7 last season. They've got a manager with really high pedigree, championship pedigree, you might say, in Paul Cook, when you think of the work that he did at Wigan Athletic, and somebody who can motivate players to run through brick walls for him, and also a squad that's probably got plenty of proven quality at this level and beyond, in the likes of Will Grigg, Tom Naylor, of course, and Armando Dobra, who himself doesn't have that same pedigree, but has also really shown his quality in League Two last season. At the same time, there's also challenges for Chesterfield to overcome this summer, I think, especially in terms of the growth potential of the squad. I don't see too many players in that squad that I would say would be miles better than they were last season. And therefore, I do think they need to pivot their recruitment strategy slightly to bring in some younger players who have got that potential to grow and improve, because I do think that it's a component that they're maybe missing at the moment. But I think on the whole, I'm really excited about the journey Chesterfield are on. They have owners, thankfully, now who seem to have a fantastic, very much in tune with the fan base. So lots of reasons for optimism, but are they ready to make that next step and challenge for promotion from League Two again next season? That's what we're here to discuss on this Summer Deep Dive. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. This is part of a series of Summer Deep Dive podcasts. I'm speaking to a fan of each of the 72 clubs across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July. So if you want more of that stuff, you can get subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. That would help us out a lot. For now, I'm delighted to be joined by Tom from Spireites Write. Tom, great to have you on. How do you feel about the trajectory that Chesterfield are on at the moment?
Very positive, it has to be said. I think before a ball was kicked last season, we said that we'd been happy with top half, top 10 finish. So to get the playoffs really felt like a sort of an affirmation that what we're doing is right, and that we're heading in the right direction, and that we can compete in League Two with this team. As you said, we're going to have our challenges this summer in terms of recruitment, because I think you've hit the nail on the head with the sort of youth aspect, that we probably need to get some younger, hungry players in. But the club has got on record, and Paul has got on record to say that's exactly the kind of player that he wants, and they're the kinds of players that he has a tendency to find and nurture. So I'm excited, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just talk to me about the ownership, because I think we touched on it when you came on this podcast last year, that they seem to be just very reliable people who are very much connected with the fan base. And I think that kind of leadership, we spoke about it with Grimsby Town last night, that kind of leadership does sort of tend to trickle down, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously there's been the really sad news that Phil Kirk has been diagnosed with cancer. So that's really sad. But I think on the whole, they've been fantastic for this football club. Like you say, it does trickle down to the management and onto the pitch. Everyone speaks so highly of both him and Ash. And I think the fact that Phil's putting another 5 million over this summer just shows you how much he cares about the club and wants us to do well going forwards. But yeah, obviously that's horrible news to have received. But I think every single Spireites is massively grateful to both of them for what they've done and what they continue to do for this club.
Yeah, well, we certainly send all our thoughts to and love to everyone connected, and 100%. I wanted to ask you about Paul Cook, Tom, because I think, to my mind, he's obviously got a fantastic managerial CV. I think one of the best in League Two in terms of working in the Championship with Wigan, keeping them up once and coming close to keeping them up with, I think it was a 12-point deduction in the 1920 season. He's won numerous titles in the Football League as well. You must be very happy to have somebody of his calibre at the helm.
No, I mean, there's literally no one else that I'd rather have as manager of the club than Cook. I think they don't come better than him in lower league football. And I think in terms of a personality as well. They just don't come better than him in football. Full stop. He just gets it. Obviously, he's had 2 spells at this club, and he's brought success both times he's been here. And there's no reason for us to believe that he won't bring further success in the future. But I think more important than that, even if he didn't, the fact that he goes on record to say things like, this is my club, and just how much love he actually has for the team. I mean, he wouldn't have dropped that down to Chesterfield in non-league if he didn't love the club. And just for that alone, for me, that cements it. I'm very much a Cook loyalist, and I'll back him to the hill.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I've always felt with Cook is that his biggest strength is man management and motivation. I think he can get players to run through brick walls for him. I think he's got a good sense of humour as well. But he's also got a bit of an edge to him, and I think he treads that balance really well. But also, what I'm curious about, Tom, is that whereas in previous jobs he's had Liam Richardson alongside him, who the impression I'd got is that Richardson had been a bit more of a technical coach, if you like, and a bit more of the day-to-day, the training ground stuff in terms of the tactical sort of insight, and Cook I'm sure that he does have that tactical and technical side to him, but leaning a bit more on the motivational aspect. So I guess as Cook leaned on his assistants and first team coach at Chesterfield, or would you say he's very much the main man when it comes to all the tactical and technical stuff?
That's a good question, to be fair. And the first thing that struck me when he came back, and probably over the last year or so, is how many coaches he's brought to the club since coming. So I think we've had the likes of Danny Webb, who was already here under the previous management as assistant manager, and I think he does a great job, especially in terms of the set pieces and stuff. I think they're sort of his child. Obviously, he's got Gary Roberts, who previously played under Cook for Chesterfield. Really loved character around town, and also a very good player who I'm sure has got a lot, sort of in terms of technical ability on the training pitch to offer to the players. And obviously,
he was a lovely footballer in his day as well, wasn't he, Gary Roberts?
Fantastic player, yeah. But obviously, we've got lots of Paddy Byrne. We've got you can just list the names off. To be fair, we've got a lot of coaches who've worked under Cook at previous clubs. I think a few came from Ipswich over here, I think it's more of a team effort, and Cook does like to stress that it's not just him. It's a whole sort of milieu of coaches and that sort of thing, which will contribute towards it. But I think in his own right as well, Cook, he's got a lot of experience, like you've mentioned, in the EFL, and I think he's got a very clear, cohesive style of play. So it's a bit of everyone, I think.
Is it a bit of everyone, would you say, Tom, in recruitment this summer? I don't know what the club's processes are, whether it's kind of Cook taking the lead or whether it's more of an operational figure. I don't actually know if you've got a head of recruitment or how that all works.
So I don't know if we've got a head of recruitment per se, but we do have a scouting team, as any club does, to be fair. But from what we've heard, we've been looking across England, obviously, but we've been sending out scouts a bit more broadly across Europe as well, which is something a bit new for us as a club. It's not something that we've massively done in the past, but yeah, it's exciting to hear that we're sort of broadening our horizons. And obviously, like these days, every football club has a certain idea of who's out there just because of the sort of stats and analytics side of things, which is growing, isn't it, in football? But I think it's a mixture of Cook. Obviously, when he first came back, he brought in players that he'd worked with before, Naylor, Grigg, Dobra, players like that. But I think now we're sort of starting to sort of look a bit broader than that. But Cook, I'm never worried about recruitment with him because he knows what kind of player he likes, and we know that his system works. So as long as he finds players that fit his system, then it'll work.
Yeah, 100%. So just having a look at the squad, what I've got down, I think, is the state of play. Now, at the moment, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, we don't know if Ryan Boot is going to sign a new deal. Is this goalkeeper an area that you feel like the club could upgrade in possibly from last season?
Yeah, I think, to be fair on Ryan Boot, he put in some absolutely massive performances towards the back end of last season, making quite a few saves, which ultimately, contributed a lot towards our playoff push. So if it were to be Ryan Boot as number one next year, which I hope it is, I hope he signs on that dotted line. But if it was, I'd be more than happy with that. I think he's more than good enough for League Two. But obviously, I think in every position you've got to say if we can find a player who's better than what we've already got, then it's a no-brainer to bring them in. Would I say goalkeeper's the number one priority? Obviously, in terms of you need probably 2 goalies at least, don't you?
Yeah.
We probably need to bring someone in at least as cover, if not as like a better starter. But for me, I'd be happy if it was Boo as a starter and just get a younger deputy in or something like that.
Mm. Do you not feel though there's a risk of maybe putting too much weight on Boots' form in the last third of the season? And let's say the season was flipped and Ryan Boot started the season the way that he finished it, but then for the other 2/3, his form was at a different level. Would you be feeling the same way? Would you maybe have more of an inclination to see if you can find someone who takes that position up an extra level?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think, obviously, earlier in the season, he wasn't the nailed-on starter anyway. There was sort of a bit of a tussle between him and Max Thompson, who we had on loan off of Newcastle. But I think overall, Boot was the better goalkeeper. And I think if we played him all season, maybe if he'd had that consistency of being picked every week, his form would have been a bit more consistent. So that's just my opinion on it. But like you say, if we can get a better goalie, fine, let's do it. If not, I'm happy with Ryan Boot.
Yeah. Well, I imagine he's happy using his feet.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So right back at the moment, I've got Raheem Shackelford and Liam Jessup as a young right back who I think was out on loan last season. That's probably a position where I'd think, yes, you want somebody who's very athletic and can get. But you had, who was it, Vontae Daly-Campbell in the first, and then he got injured, didn't he? So yeah. I imagine you'd be looking for someone in that mould.
Yeah, it was a massive problem position for us last year. I think we brought in Devin Townsend on loan. He got injured. Vontae Daly-Campbell, who we brought in, got injured. Raheem Shackelford got injured. And then we ended up having to play Liam Mandeville at right back for quite a lot of the second half of last season, which, don't get me wrong, he did an all right job, but he's not a right back. And no. I feel like he's wasted at right back. I'd rather have him higher up the pitch as a number 10 or something like that, or a right winger. So, yeah, it's definitely a position we need to find somebody who can play and not get injured, because, and I'm going to come back to this on a lot of positions. I think it's been our Achilles heel all year. We've had so many injuries that I think to get 7th place, we did amazingly well to do that, to be honest with you. So, yeah, right back. I mean, even Janoy Danasi and another one who came in to fill in that role and then got injured while sprinting. So, yeah, if we can bring somebody in who can actually, we can get, 35, 40, maybe even 46 games out of, that'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be brilliant. I did want to touch on that injury record, actually, Tom. Do you think that a lot of it was impact injuries and just a bit of bad luck, or do you see there to be an area for the club to think, oh, hang on, we probably we might be getting something wrong here. We need to tweak our approach to sports science?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of factors. Because there were a few in pre-season where you're like, what are they doing to them? And I think the likes of Paddy Madden, Shea Dunkley, players like that, I don't think have historically been very injury prone, when they've just got very long-term injuries that have kept them out for a long time. That's possibly an element of bad luck. It could be something to do with training off, like pre-season training, just getting unlucky with that. I don't know. But then throughout the season, we were just getting niggles. I think over the Christmas period, especially, we ended up having to play a 16-year-old at Fleetwood, and then the game the week after against MK Dons, we were having to put players on the bench who couldn't play. I think Cook said he did it as like a tactic to sort of make them not realise how threadbare the squad actually was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like moral support. Yeah. But yeah, so it's hard to say, isn't it, with injury crises, because they do happen, and I don't think there's one inherent cause to it, but the club have said they're investigating whether or not it's something to do with the training, whether it's the surface of the training pitch, a variety of different factors. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it, and fingers crossed it's not as bad next year, because honestly, just every single game it felt like someone was going off the pitch on a stretcher or like limping off. It got boring.
Do you think this is an area, Tom, where the club could do with a director of football type figure? Because I sometimes feel like with a manager, if you're living and breathing everything and right in at the heart of everything, sometimes it's harder for a manager to be able to step back, where a director of football who's looking from above, they might have a different perspective on things. They're able to sometimes spot those things in for a slightly different position. And I just wonder if that's something you feel like the club could benefit from.
It's a really good question. I feel like it's not a model we've really dealt with before, and I'm not sure whether or not a manager such as Paul Cook would want that authority above him, because
Sure.
he's the kind of manager who likes to have a lot of autonomy. And don't get me wrong, I think he's sort of earned the right to have that autonomy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The results on the pitch speak for themselves. But I get where you're coming from, that sort of like objective view to like look at things from an outside perspective. It could be useful in some aspects. I personally don't see it happening at Chesterfield, at least not while Cook's here. But I think there could be some benefit to it in that regard, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So we definitely think right back's definitely an area too. Do you think Raheem Shackelford could could get offers from the National League, and Jessup could be the backup right back, or do you think Jessup's going to be loaned out maybe to the National League?
I personally, we'll start with Shackelford. I think he probably will get some offers from the National League. I think he's a very good player at that level. I think he's an all right player at League Two level, but at 29, 30, as you've alluded to at the start, he's not going to get any better from here, probably. And I think just in terms of like injuries and that, it's probably one where if the right deal comes in, I would let him go. Which I know saying that we don't have very many right backs might be a risky thing to let a player go, but you've just got to trust the process and hope that there's enough good players out there in the market to bring in, I guess. But yeah, in terms of Liam Jessup, and don't get me wrong, I think he's a good young lad, and I think he'll have a good career. But I'm not sure he's quite at the level yet where he can be back up or starting for us. So yeah, I'd be sending him out to National League or National League North, in my opinion.
Yeah, hopefully it can develop, bubble away for another year, and then come back into the equation.
Yeah.
So centre halves at the moment. Got on the list Jamie Grimes, been quite reliable. We've talked about injuries. I think he's one that has been able to stay fit for long periods.
Yes.
Jay Dunkley as well, who I would say is your best centre half. And Ash Palmer and Tyrone Williams are sort of contract outs, a bit like Ryan Boot. We don't quite know what's going to happen with them. So we'll start with Palmer and Williams. What do you think either of them are going to sign new deals, or would you see them being offloaded?
So I think with Williams, it's hard to know because obviously he had that horror injury against Swindon last year, where essentially it was in doubt whether or not it was even going to be walking, never mind playing football. And I feel like he's bounced back a lot from that to the point where now he's walking and he's fine in that regard. But I'm not sure he's going to be ready to play football for a long time. And he said himself he wants to get back to playing one day. But I think in terms of why we've offered him a deal, I think it's more we're going to help him continue with his recovery from that injury, if that makes sense. I'd be very surprised if he actually gets on the pitch for us anytime soon.
Right.
Ash Palmer is an interesting one because he came back in second half of the season and he was playing brilliantly, to be fair. Winning every header, putting some great tackles. And I wouldn't say I've been his critic in the past, but I thought in terms of ball playing, he probably had lacked a little bit. But him and McFadzean actually formed quite a good partnership between them towards the back end of the season, where McFadzean was probably the one pinging the nice switch balls out to the full-backs or whatever, and Palmer was more doing the simple stuff. So in terms of whether or not it'll stay, I don't know, but I think it's a good option.
Well, maybe on the signs of that, it's possible that you would maybe be looking to offload Tyrone Williams and sort of part company, shake hands with him and move on. But maybe Ash Palmer could be useful in terms of possibly a backup option at centre half and sort of be that reliable guy who can come in and do a job if needed.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. And I think we offered a deal to McFadzean as well, haven't we? Which
Okay.
Yeah, I really hope he signs it because obviously, I mean, his credentials speak for themselves, don't they? He's played at a much higher level than this, and I think at the age he's at, it's a good opportunity for him, and I think it's also a good opportunity for us to have that sort of experienced head at the back who he just doesn't get phased. He's good with the ball at his feet. He's a very experienced defender. I'd be sides up.
I think Che Dunk. Well, that would be interesting though, because I think Che Dunkley and Carl McFadzean, perhaps that would be the dream first choice centre half pairing next season. If you could get 40+ league starts out of those two, then you're probably
100%.
onto a winner.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Dunkley was a really frustrating one because obviously we brought him in essentially to be our new captain and then be our sort of marquee signing at the centre back, and he barely played for us all season. So we did feel a bit shafted on that one, but I like him. Again, another composed player, and that's what you need at the back, especially in a system like Paul Cook's. You need players who are all right with the ball at the feet. They're not going to sort of panic if they get pressed. So yeah, that, like you say, that'd be a fantastic pair in a centre half at this level.
Yeah, for sure. I think Grimes. Then, how do you feel? How would you sort of assess his first season up in League Two?
I think he's been hot and cold, I would say. He's a player who's always divided opinion among Chesterfield fans, and I'm of the positive camp with him, where I think he's an absolute consummate professional. Obviously, he's our captain for a reason. He sets the example sort of on and off the pitch. I think he's a solid enough defender. He's got a mistake in him, but what low league defender doesn't have a mistake in them? I guess it would be my sort of counter argument to that. I think in terms of the kind of character you want around the club, he is the absolute consummate professional. So I'm happy he's had another contract. I don't think he'll be starting every week next year, but he's I think he's one who, a bit like with Palmer, you can step in when needed and do a good job, and the dressing room will be a good influence as well.
Yeah, and if you're playing for Chesterfield, you need players who are going to be able to step in and do a job.
Yes, yeah, apparently so. Yeah, with the amount of injuries.
Left back then, Brandon Horton has gone to Gateshead, hasn't he? So
yes.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to need 2 left backs, doesn't it?
Possibly. I mean, obviously we've got Lewis Gordon, who is a good player.
Is he under contract?
Say again.
Oh, sorry. Do you know what? I think I looked at the retained list, the club release. I don't know if I could see. Yeah, anyway. So you've got Lewis Gordon under contract.
Yes. Yeah, we've got Lewis Gordon, but obviously we'll want another option. And I think the option's already been in and out of the door of the club in Jack Sparks, who we had on loan from Peterborough. He's sort of a more attacking option than Gordon, perhaps. Gordon's just a more steady presence at left back, but Sparks is one who can sort of bomb up and down the wing, and he's got absolutely one with a left peg for those sort of deep crosses into the box. So if we could get Sparks and Gordon as our 2 options for next year, I'd be really happy.
Yeah, I think also with Paul Cook's sides, they've typically, with a 4-2-3-1, typically had a very solid central midfield pairing, and then given a lot of freedom to the fullbacks. So with Jack Sparks, yes, he isn't great defensively, but he is that good going forward, where, like you say, he's got a one to the left foot and can really, bring us back to the team. The quality of deliveries, I think it more than makes up for that, especially if you've got a nailer in midfield covering all bases. So I could see that. So do you think you would be able to retain Jack Sparks?
I don't know. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is he out of contract at Peterborough, or would we have to pay a fee for him?
Oh, I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look that one up, Tom.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I think if he's out of contract, we should absolutely be offering him a deal. If he's sort of got another year or so, it might be worth lowballing Peterborough with like a couple of, 20, 30 grand, 50 grand offer maybe. See if we can accept, because I think he's out of favour there. So it kind of makes sense for all parties for me that, they've got a player that we want.
What I do know is they've got a lad called Harley Mills who had a brilliant end to last season with Peterborough, and he's only 19. So he's like a big high potential asset for them. And I would imagine that they'd probably want to prioritise that. And Jack Sparks will feel like, if I'm going to be first choice at Chesterfield or second choice at Peterborough, I'd probably take being first choice at Chesterfield. So
yeah. Absolutely. And like you said, fullbacks do play like a pivotal role in our system, bombing forward to get crosses in. So yeah, no, I think it makes sense for everyone, to be honest.
Yeah, well, hopefully he takes that option. Central midfield then. I mean, at the moment, I've got Connor Cook down from the retained list and Tom Naylor. So again, I think Cook. I think is he a youngster from the academy?
He's Cook's kid.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
And then Naylor's obviously your experienced defensive midfielder who can fill in at centre half as well. But
yeah.
yeah, definitely going to need more in midfield, aren't you?
100%. We've offered a contract to John Fleck as well, I believe.
Okay.
Again, whether or not he accepts it, that's still up in the air. But he was class back end last season. I mean, it's John Fleck. You know, if he's fit, he's going to be too good for League Two, isn't he? So yeah, it was a bit of a game changer when we got him out on the pitch, and we were getting 70, 80 minutes out of him every week. So yeah, if we can get him and Naylor, fantastic. Bit old of a pairing though, isn't it? So
yeah. Well, I was just going to say, Tom, like the one downside I would say plus side of having Naylor and Fleck as your midfield pairing is you've got the solidity of Naylor and that sort of bite, and Fleck, who's a wonderful technician. So those are two positives. But in terms of mobility and dynamism, it's not a pairing that necessarily screams that. So I'm wondering. I think Chesterfield need to be looking at a dynamic, athletic box-to-box midfielder, possibly someone in the mould of Tim Akinola, who I think Spireites liked in the National League, but he didn't really get much of a look in League Two.
No, it was an interesting one with Akinola. He kind of came back to the club and then just never played for us, and no one could figure out why. Yeah, I guess it happens like that sometimes with players, doesn't it? But no, I agree completely. We needed probably at least one or two younger options in midfield. For me, Jensen Metcalf, who was on loan last season from Everton, he was a really, really good, exactly what you just described, dynamic, young, box-to-box midfielder, good technically as well. I think obviously we've let go Darren Oldacre, who was that sort of mould of player, but possibly a bit too inconsistent for us in League Two, I would say. I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked DJ, and he put in some great performances for us, especially in the National League days. But I think we just decided we probably need a bit of an upgrade there. So, but yeah, if we could get Metcalf back on another year loan, I'd be happy. I think obviously with Ollie Banks leaving a little bit higher up the pitch as well, we definitely need, I would say, 2 or 3 options in centre mid at least.
Is there a chance Everton are willing to let Jensen Metcalf go permanently, or is he so young that he's still a big asset for them that they'll be like wanting to sell on higher up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you never know, do you? With players of that ilk, like do they think he'll develop eventually to be a player that's worthy of playing for Everton or not? I can't answer that question, but I think he'd be a great player for us now, and I think he's a player with a lot of upside. So if we can get him permanently, then I'll be over the moon with it, to be honest.
Well, hopefully you can either retain him or find somebody of a similar profile, because that midfield certainly needs a bit of strengthening. And yeah, getting Fleck on another deal, I think, would be great. So the right wing then, I mean, I guess Liam Mandeville would like a bit of continuity in terms of playing on the right wing, but you also had Dylan Marquez. I suppose he's played in both senses. In the first half of the season, he was behind Dylan Marquez, and in the second half of the season, he's had to fill in at right back because he's not had one. So it's been a bit of a tough season, I guess, for Liam Mandeville.
Yeah, I think his first goal of the season was at Salford away, which was well into the second half of the season. So, like you say, in terms of goal output and that sort of thing. But I think that's not really his fault. Like, he's not had any continuity at all in terms of what positions he's been played in, what roles he's been asked to do. And we all love Liam Mandeville. He's a great character first and foremost, but he's also just a grafter. He never stops running. And what I crucially like about him is he's a very good decision maker on the ball. He very, very rarely loses it, and I think you need players like that in a Paul Cook system. But for me, he's not a right midfielder either. I think he's a number 10. Yeah, he's that kind of player.
We're not getting over. He's not better than Dobra, is he?
No, he's not better than Dobra, but Dobra can also operate on the wing. So you've got your question there. Do you play Dobra on the left, Mandy in the middle, then maybe a Dylan Duffy on the right as more of an inverted winger kind of thing? I don't know, maybe. But, that's not for me to decide as it is for Paul Cook to decide. But, don't get me wrong, Mandy is a good option on the right wing as well, in terms of, but he's probably more the kind of right wing who will hold the ball up for an overlapping fullback, or he'll slot the ball back in the middle for the striker with like a low cross, or roll it to the edge of the box. He's not a winger. in the conventional sense, where he's going to beat the fullback for pace and get across it, if you know what I mean.
But I guess what I'd say with that though, Tom, is that the way Paul Cook's teams have historically operated, like I mentioned, the fullbacks kind of are the ones who provide the width, and I don't know that I would say that conventionally he has operated with standard wingers, because if I think of his Portsmouth side, they had basically 3 number 10s, I would say, who all kind of rotated and interchanged, and it was the fullbacks who held the width. But I guess in the second half of last season, he did bring a couple of wingers in, and he did want to operate that way. So be interesting to see how Cook wants to set the team up. But maybe we can agree that if Mandeville does start on the right wing, he needs an overlapping fullback that's going to really fly forward ahead of him.
I would agree. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Mandeville's best probably partnership that he's had so far at clubs when we had Jeff King at right back and him on the right wing, and obviously King's very much that attacking fullback who will bomb on, and you sort of had Mandeville almost dropping in behind to cover King defensively, and he was the main attacking outlet. But I agree with that. I think we need, regardless of who you've got in those 3 behind the striker, you need technical players who can hold the ball up and aren't necessarily just good at running and good at crossing. So I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I've loved watching. Excuse me, got a hiccup at the wrong time there. I loved watching Armando Dobra last season, Tom, just because of his dancing feet and the way that he seems to elude opponents, and scored, I think it was 11 goals in the end. But a little bit surprised looking back that he didn't actually get that many assists. I think it was like 2 or 3 over the course of the season. Do you think there's a reason for that? Do you think he's creating a lot of chances, but it's just for some reason they're not landing? Or is that one area that you'd like to see a bit more from him? Because otherwise he can be a joy to watch, can't he?
Oh, I mean, he's a fantastic player, Dobra. I think he's too good for you too, to be honest with you. But it's been really nice to see him come on a lot in the last year in terms of his decision making, because that was my main criticism of him when he initially came to the club. That he's a brilliant technical player, but he didn't always do the right thing on the ball. I think he's now learning a bit more how to operate within a team, which obviously contradicts, I guess, what you just said about the assists. But I think Dobra's main strength is that goal threat. He's not. I don't think he's that conventional, creative, assisty playmaker. He's more the kind of player who you give the ball to, and he'll make something happen. And he's
got that dancing feet about him, hasn't he? Yeah,
yeah. Like he'll have a shot from the edge of the box, or he'll dance into the box and slot it into the keeper's legs or whatever. He's more that kind of winger than someone who goes mainly for assists.
Right. So do you think that he could make you wouldn't mind seeing him? Would you say, if I had to ask you now, regardless of the debate about where you'd play Liam Mandeville, would you say Armando Dobra is best as the number 10, or would you say he's best in one of the wider spots in a Cook 4-2-3-1?
You see, I prefer him cutting inside off the left wing onto his right foot. He's played in the number 10 and done a good job there as well. But for me, I like players like Mandeville in the number 10, who are first and foremost good decision makers and keep things ticking over, move the ball side to side, play those little through balls. And don't get me wrong, it's not like Dobra can't do that. I just don't think it's his main strength.
Right. Yeah. I think. I guess he does have that ability. If you're playing him wider, he's less of a marked man. Whereas if you're a number 10, you're in a very congested area. So it's harder for him to get into those really advanced areas where he can really do that damage. Whereas if he's coming in sort of slightly uncharted, then I guess he might have more opportunities, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well are number 10s or our attacking midfielders in general are quite liquid. So even during a game, they'll swap positions. So Dobra might be on the left wing for a bit of it, then cut inside to number 10, and then someone else will go wide. And, it's very much very fluid.
Liquid football.
Liquid football. Yeah, exactly. Total football. So I think positions, you can get bogged down saying what's a player's best position, but I think ultimately they do rotate quite a lot anyway in games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's how you want it, really. You don't want too much sort of static movement. Would you say Dylan Duffy's more of a conventional winger then, Tom?
Good question. Yes and no. I think he probably more fits that mould that Mandeville does, because I think he's quicker, first and foremost, than Mandeville. So I think he can beat a man and get across it. But I think what I find similar between him and Mandeville is he's not the kind of player who will always go for the cross. He's very much a first and foremost ball retention kind of winger, which I don't mind. It opens up those avenues for perhaps a Jack Sparks running beyond him, and he can find him with a through ball. That was looking a really fruitful partnership down that left hand side when Duffy played there with Sparks. But I think he's got a good cross on him. He's quick. He's still probably a bit raw at his age, but I think he's got a bit of a goal threat to him as well. So he's got a little bit of everything you want from a winger. But first and foremost, he's just a good decision maker, and you need that in this team.
Would you have him in your best 11 to start next season with, or would you be? Is that an area where you'd be looking to maybe sign someone else, or move Dobra to the left? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's rumours that we're trying to go in for Dylan Markande, which if we could sign him would be fantastic. I think it's probably a long shot because I think he's more than good enough for League One, but. If we do get him, then that attacking midfield with Dobra, Duffy, Mandeville, Markande, it's looking very, very tasty all of a sudden, isn't it? But so I think ask me that question after the summer is my answer.
Yeah, I think Dylan Markande is just one of those players where if you signed him, he could be the difference between playoffs and automatic, or he could be 8th and 7th. I think he can be a real difference maker. I think.
Absolutely, 100%. He's just too good for League Two, isn't he? So if we did land him, we'd be making him play below his station. Let's put it that way.
For sure. So in terms of the striker options, the one, let's do pros and cons, because on the one hand, bags of individual quality in Will Grigg and Paddy Madden, some names that would be the envy of most of League Two with the pedigree that they've both got. On the other hand, both in the twilight years of their careers. So you obviously brought in Bim Peppel on loan, I think, for the second half of last season. Do you think you'll be looking for a younger profile of striker just to give Paul Cook a different option?
Yeah, 100%. To be honest with you, I would try and get Bim Peppel. I think to be fair, there was an article the other day in the Derbyshire Times saying that we're one of many clubs who are after him. And I think just because he's that young profile of hungry striker, physical as well, which in League Two you need a physical option. I think that's one thing we've learned this season is just how physical a division it actually is. I think at times it's more physical than the National League, which surprised me. I didn't expect so many teams to be really direct, counter-attacky sides. At least internationally, you get teams like Gateshead, Altrincham who try and play it around. But anyway, sort of besides the point. I think we could do with a physical option up front. And for me, Bim Peppel would be a great one. I mean, he's obviously, again, 22 years old. He's got a lot of upside, hasn't he? And he's going to develop into a very, very good player, I think. But if it's not Bim Peppel, I'd say we need it. That's the kind of striker I want. I want a physical profile striker, a bit more of a conventional target man, but obviously a mobile target man, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's going to be really important because if you want to be able to engage from the front, you don't want all your minutes to be going to Will Grigg and Paddy Madden because there's a danger that they could get a bit jaded, and I think you need players who can sort of dilute that a bit. So if I'm looking at the squad, then Tom, you're definitely going to need at least one new goalkeeper and or Ryan Boot re-signing. So that's one. Definitely going to need at least one right back signing, possibly two, depending on what you had to do with Shackelford. Need to possibly re-sign McFadzean, and if Williams goes, you've obviously got Naylor who can cover there. Probably need another left back to be back up to Gordon. So what we're looking at, definitely two midfielders, and probably another couple of players who can play in those three attacking midfield / wide positions and another striker. So at the moment, are we looking at 3, 5, 7, about another 8 additions roughly?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I mean, I'd probably say another centre half as well. Obviously, there's no guarantees Palmer signs, so we might need to bring somebody else in those positions as well. So yeah, possibly 8 or 9 signings, which when you say it sounds like a lot, but I trust Paul Cook to do it. I mean, I remember last time we were in this sort of similar situation with Paul Cook, where when he first came to the club, he got us actually just outside the League Two playoffs in his first season here. He came midway through. and then the season after that we went straight from that to winning the league. So it is doable with Paul Cook. I think he's very capable of finding those players. Obviously, it's not nailed on that we find everyone that we want to find, or that we even manage to sign everyone we want to sign, because you know what football's like. But for me, he will be back to the transfer market, and I think he'll bring in those players, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think what I would say about the squad is that with Dunkley, with possibly McFadzean, with possibly Fleck, certainly with Naylor, who's under contract, and Dobra, Grigg, and Madden, you've got 7 or 8 players there who you'd say have pedigree at this level, are proven, are reliable performers when they're fit, and that can be a real bedrock for the squad. I think you need to dilute that group with some young, fresh energy players that can just kick things on another level. And I think, that again, that fitness and athleticism is a big focus for me in those 8 to 10 positions that we've spoken about.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And like I say, I think that is basically the club's transfer policy this summer. What they've said is some younger, hungrier players. So I think you're spot
on. Now, expectation for the season, Tom. I think last year you could have said with a top half finish, first season up, it's progress. I think this season there probably is a little bit more pressure that the club have kind of almost put on itself by doing extremely well, because you can raise expectations but you can't lower them. That's just how football works. So I think the club have to finish I think in terms of expectation, certainly from the fan base point of view. I don't know how the board will view things, but I think from a fan base point of view, you've probably got to finish in the top 7 again next season and be in amongst it.
Yeah, 100%. I think as a club, our stated aim is Cook wants to get us back to League One and potentially knock on the doors of the League One playoffs where he left us last time. Obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think this season it was more seen as if we go up this year, great, but if not, it's not the end of the world, because we'll then have this summer to sort of build on it and try and go for that top 3 next season, which I think we'll be trying to do. I think that will be our aim next year, is top 3. Ostensibly, it was our aim last season, but I think probably a bit too far, especially with the injuries, because possibly just a bridge too far. I mean, we were only 8 points off it though, so it just shows you how close things are in League 2. And obviously, with those 3 automatic spots to aim for, I think there's sort of quite a safety net for teams who want to go up automatically compared to the National League, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. You say Rome wasn't built in a day. I think you can use Chesterfield as that example. Got the better historical buildings.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. I think that spire was built in a day. I think that's the problem, to be honest.
Where was I? I wanted to. One of my processes for putting together the 1 to 24, which will be out in a few weeks, is basically scoring each club out of 10 on a series of categories. And some of these are a bit unknown until we know what the squad's fully going to look like. But I'm going to sort of ask for some provisional scores from your point of view now. So give me a number between 1 out of 10 on each of these categories. Ownership, starting with them.
I think it's got to be a 10. I think since they've come back in, they've been fantastic. Got us back to the Football League where we feel we belong, and they care, they get it. You can't ask for any more, really.
Structure, so recruitment and facilities, the operational side of the club.
I will go for a 8 out of 10, because I think that's improved a lot over the last few years. We've had a lot of investment into things like the training ground, and obviously since Paul Cook's come back in, the recruitment room has been established, which has been helping him a lot of scouting, that kind of thing, and that's something that let's be honest, it should be a given these days at a football club, shouldn't it? You need to have that sort of knowledge of who's out there at the end of the day. So but I think that's come on leaps and bounds, and the ownership as well are improving the sort of off-pitch offering for fans and that kind of thing. Like, we've got a lot of food trucks outside the stadium now. We've got our own little fan zone bar as well, and I think things like that are just coming on a lot, and it's lovely to see that they care about the fan experience as well.
Yeah, I think that makes a massive difference, doesn't it? So playing budget, I think you'll have one of the biggest budgets in the league next season.
I agree. I think probably 9, because I don't see many teams who probably will be better placed to invest than we are.
Management.
10.
10, yeah.
Yeah.
Goalkeeper is a bit of an unknown because we don't know what. Let's say hypothetically Ryan Boot resigns and you sign a backup to him. What would you go for the goalkeeping department?
I'd probably say a steady 7 out of 10. I think Boots more than good enough for this level. But yeah, there's probably a bit of room for improvement there if you could get in a better player, sort of thing.
Defense.
7
again. A bit uncertain in a few positions.
Yeah, it is. I'd probably say 7 again, just because I think the players that we do have, especially the more experienced ones, if we can get them playing 40, 45 games next year, fantastic. But we do need some recruitment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'd probably say a 5 or 6 based on what's there right now, but there's confidence that it's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
End of the window. Midfield, I guess, with focusing on Naylor and maybe Fleck returns for that as a central midfield pairing.
Yeah, I'd say probably 6 out of 10. And that's not a comment on their ability because I think they're brilliant, but we need some players in.
Yeah, of course, because they're the only two I think.
Yeah,
Connor Cook at the moment. Attack.
I would say already 7.5 because I think we've already got some cracking options. But again, maybe the 1 or 2 missing pieces of the puzzle, Dylan Markande, fingers crossed. But if not, yeah, get a couple of good players in, we're sorted there, to be honest.
Yeah, depth is one that I'll pass on for now because we just can't realistically tell, but I'm sure there will be squad depth. Squad stability.
Squad stability.
A squad that's been together for a while. I mean, I think that you'd again score quite highly on that one.
Yeah, I'd agree. We've got a lot of players who've been at the club during this sort of uphill period. Obviously, the likes of Liam Mandeville been here longer than that. So yeah, I'd probably say 7.5 on that.
7.5 on stability. The next one is team spirit.
Team spirit. I mean, you've got to imagine it's quite high after last season. I think we made a good account of ourselves despite all the injury challenges and stuff. So yeah, I'd probably say 7.
7. Growth potential in the squad. Again, I that's probably the one area that I'd score quite low right now. And I think that would need some recruitment to sort of change my mind on that one.
Yeah, I agree. Let's say 6 for now, because we've got a couple of players like Dobra who I think will go on to have championship, maybe even higher careers personally. But yeah, in general, like I say, we probably need some younger depth.
Again, I'd fitness, which is another category. I'd put that similar to growth in that. I think it's one that needs to be tweaked a little bit in terms of the recruitment policy this summer, but I would also have some confidence that it will be from what you've said.
Yeah, I think we sort of got away last season with, to be fair, once we did have players fit, we've got quite a lot of squad depth. I think Cook's team last year scored more goals from substitute players than almost anyone in Europe. So it shows that we do have good strength in depth, but obviously you can sort of patch over the fitness with that, I guess, can't you, to an extent?
Yeah, okay. So should we say a 6 for now?
Yeah.
And the final one is quality. So technical quality of the players, individual ability.
I'm going to say 7.5 for that one because I think we are a very technically good team. Again, there's probably a couple of signs we can make which would push it to the next level to that 8 or 9, maybe even 10.
Okay, just a few more questions then. What would be the biggest reason to believe that Chesterfield will meet their ambitions this season?
I think you asked me this last year, and I think I just said Paul Cook, and I'm going to have to go with that again, to be honest with you. I think I trust him. So, yeah, Paul Cook for me.
What's the biggest reason for doubt?
The fact that we need to make so many signings, probably, because obviously we can't predict who we're going to. Well, you can predict who we're going to bring in. Doesn't mean we'll be right, but yeah, the best laid plans of mice and men can go wrong, can't they? So if we're getting everyone we want, fantastic. If not, you then look: is the squad covered? Do we have 2 players in every position? So yeah, I guess that's the only doubt in my mind at the minute.
And then on balance, how confident are you feeling right now? Very early days, because I know it's too early to give a prediction or anything, but just your level of confidence that your ambitions for next season are going to be realised.
Yeah, honestly, I'm feeling really confident for next year. I think we're, as a club, more than capable of getting promoted from this division. I mean, we've done it before with a record number of League Two titles for a reason. So hopefully we can extend that next year. But if not, like I say, top three would be fantastic. So I'm feeling really confident.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully that'll bear fruit. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. What are your plans for Spireites Write for next season, and what can people expect if they follow?
So obviously we do weekly podcast dissecting the game and sort of predicting the next game. Typically talking about general goings on around the club as well. But I think for next season, it could be an interesting one. Obviously, we're hoping we're going to be going for promotion. And hopefully we're going to have a few more guests on and stuff like that. They're the podcasts we love doing the most. So we got the people on, and you yourself, Gabe, will get you on at some point next year if that's all right by you.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, best luck with Spireites Write for next season, and keep up the great work. Thanks for joining us, Tom. Thanks to all the Spireites out there for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this podcast. You could do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to EFL Debate on YouTube, on Spotify, and Spireites Write, of course. And we'll see you again for another Summer Deep Dive very soon.
Cheers.